Okay, it's now time for the second round of questions. These are questions that are all about this particular expedition called JTRACK. The first is, what made me want to go on this trip? Well, it's important to understand here that my role on this expedition is the outreach officer. So it's my job to answer questions like the ones that you all have given to me, but I'm not one of the actual working scientists on the expedition. Though my background is in science, I'm not here to serve in a scientific capacity. I'm here to serve as an interpreter. So why did I want to do this? I've never done it before. And so it was a new experience for me. And it was probably one of the last opportunities I would have to do it. And that's because the major organization that coordinates oceanic drilling is called IODP. And the US involvement, the United States involvement in IODP is changing. And the major ship that the United States used for a very long time, the JOIDES Resolution, that ship is no longer being used. It's being decommissioned. And so basically, this was the very last IODP expedition where the United States was sending outreach officers. So basically, it was the last opportunity for me to do this for the foreseeable future where I could be funded to go on the expedition. And what I mean by funded is, I mean that IODP paid for my plane ticket, my hotels, and my helicopter flight, stuff like that, for me to be here on the ship. So that seemed like an opportunity I didn't want to pass up. What information on Japanese earthquakes do you want to know about or are hoping to find out about? Well, as you may be aware, back in 2011, there was an enormous earthquake that happened right below where the ship is right now. And that earthquake came up all the way to the seafloor and pushed some of the seafloor out of the way. And so that there was water in front of that, and that water made a big wave, and that wave is called a tsunami. So the tsunami ended up harming very many people on the shore of Japan, and even on the other side of the Pacific. It was a very, very big deal. And we don't want that to happen again. But the earthquakes will happen again. So we want to understand how these earthquakes evolve through the motion of the plates through time. So stress builds up on these two plates as they try and move past one another. And we want to know like how much stress can build up there before there is slip. So the key thing that we're trying to do is get right in there to the actual plate boundary, which could be as thin as a piece of paper or as thick as a fault zone of several meters. And understand sort of the structure and the composition and the stress state of that plate boundary. Next question is, what happens if you are badly sick or badly hurt out at sea? Well, we hope that doesn't happen, and we are very careful on the ship. Safety is really, really underlined on this ship. There's a safety officer who conducts drills. So like later today at 10 o'clock, the alarm will sound. We'll all have to put on our life jackets and go report to our assigned lifeboats to practice in case there was a major emergency. Something more minor might be like cutting your finger or slamming your fingers in a door or banging your head or something like that. And if that were serious enough, we would have to go to the hospital on the mainland. There is a nurse on the ship, but if the nurse can't handle a major medical emergency, we have to call the helicopter. It has to be safe enough for the helicopter to come from the mainland. It takes about an hour to fly out here. Then we get on board, and it takes an hour to fly back. And then it takes some time to get to the hospital in Sendai, the nearest major city. So that is a long way to get to a doctor. So we try and be very careful to prevent medical emergencies. Next question, how deep is the ocean where you're doing coring? It's about 7 kilometers deep, just shy of 7,000 meters. And then that's the top of the seafloor, and then we're going down below the seafloor, and right now I think we're at something like 400 meters below the seafloor. We anticipate hitting the plate boundary sometime around 700, 800 meters below seafloor. Okay, so next up is how and where do you keep the samples so they don't get contaminated? Well, there's sort of different levels of contamination that are relevant for the science that's being done. So if people are interested, say, just in like the structure of the core, like sedimentary layers and maybe offsets along faults, it doesn't really matter so much about contamination. You just want to be able to see those structures and document them. But for other people, such as the microbiologists who study the living organisms in the core, or the geochemists who study chemical signatures in those cores, contamination is a very big deal. And so oftentimes what they'll do is they will take the overall core and then they'll shave away part of it so it's smaller. And the idea there is to get away from any kind of potential contamination of the drilling fluid or the seawater that the core passed through on its way back up to the ship. And then they've got a relatively pure, pristine sample that they can do their analyses on. I'll post a video here in a few days about one of the scientists on board, Cameron Brown, and the work that he's doing, basically taking these big samples, making them smaller, and then squeezing all the water and gas out so it's just the sediments in a very, very dense cake. It's really a neat process. Okay, 2 more questions. What makes this specific subduction zone study an area of great importance? Well, I think I already covered that, right? Because basically it is a known subduction zone that's close to a major population center, and we know when it slipped most recently, when there was a really big earthquake, the magnitude 9 event that happened in 2011, and that was really recently. And furthermore, I think it's important because we have a ship that is capable of drilling at these depths. And not all scientific research vessels are capable of drilling a hole in the crust that's so far away, so deep in the bottom of the ocean. So all those things come together here at the Japan Trench with the Chikyu as being the vessel that can do the job. And then the last question that I have is, what is your biggest challenge doing science in the ocean? That's a great question. I think many of the challenges would be much greater and perhaps even insurmountable for a different vessel. But the Chikyu is amazing because it is capable of doing this work in these kinds of waters. So yesterday I had the opportunity to go up to the very top of the derrick, which is the central drilling structure in the middle of the ship. And I was able to look down at like the heli deck and other parts of the ship. And that was a really profound experience. It really emphasized to me what a miracle of engineering this ship is. It's really unique in the world and capable of doing things that other ships cannot do. So I would encourage you to watch that video. I posted it yesterday on my YouTube channel. And you can get a sense of what it takes to get all the way up here and look down on this floating city out in the middle of the ocean. I broke it. Yikes. Okay, I'm gonna go get some glue. Don't tell them I broke it. Bye.